Nice. I don't even know if people can hear me now. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
how
think
this
people
works.
can hear you. So, welcome
Hello, everyone.
And today, Nikon's Hardware has a guest. It is Gabriele from Mir Computers, and he is a stockpiler of different Tesla cards. You can see in the background that he has a few boxes of Teslas. And today we're gonna talk about Tesla M40, which is 12 gigabytes Titan X, and some other Tesla graphics cards
Hello,
as
everyone.
well. So, Gabriele, do you want to say a few words about your experience with the Teslas before I kick in?
Yeah, just it's actually everything started from a video that I saw on YouTube about some people trying to get the Tesla working with the result, the initial result. He was using a old Tesla K80, which is a dual GPU and it's a Kepler graphics card. So it's a much worse card than the M40 is because of the two factors being the Kepler architecture is much worse in efficiency, and efficiency is very important, not just for me, but just for like such a huge card, uh, where you get like to the limits of the cooling systems and the oils of the PSU. And also because it's a dual GPU, so a dual GPU is actually always very bad at gaming. It doesn't scale well. Sometimes it even performs worse. But then just made a mental note on myself. It's like I should check the Maxwell version. And then a couple of days afterwards, you contacted me with asking me, what do you think about the M40, Tesla M40? And I was like, yeah, I was just thinking about that. And yeah, you figured out that some supplier in China had a lot of those to sell. And so we bought them, test them, and here we are, I guess. It turns out very well.
So, let me show you what is a Tesla. So, this is a graphics card which is designed for workstation and servers, and the problem is that it doesn't have any video outputs, and it also doesn't have any fan over here. So it has a huge heatsink over here, but there is no fan, and you need to somehow cool it. On servers, you have huge fans, or rather very fast fans, which are blowing through the graphics card, and it goes through here. And here I have got a 3D printed adapter to install such fan to blow some air through the Tesla. I can show a little process of how this 3D print works, but the long story short is that you need to have some kind of a custom cooling solution for this card because it is designed to work in servers which have their own fans and their own cooling capabilities. And after my testing, I have figured out that even this 3D printed adapter is not enough. First, I have tried.
Not on the stock BIOS.
Yes, on the stock BIOS, that's not enough under full load. So first I tried to use this tiny knock to a fan because I wanted a silent system. Obviously this is not enough for a graphics card. Then I have got myself this kind of server grade fan, and this one can spin up to 7000 RPM, which is insanely loud, but it is still not enough to keep this Tesla cool under the stress test conditions. And Gabriele can show you what kind of solutions he came up with.
Yeah, I'm basically like, there's no real there's no like some major solution that you can get. So we tried a lot of things. We are trying a lot of things. These one are X99TF fans that we took out from the motherboard. You know, from the Chinese motherboard that has like this very noisy fans, and we like put them inside here. There's some space there. It's actually quite hard to fit. You have to cut some part of the mounting solution for the cooler, so you have to disassemble it fully. It's kind of bad. And we also tried to put some heat sinks on the back, which somehow works a little bit. I mean, the whole car gets to 87 degrees. The hot spot gets to 90. So it's not really something that you can rely on for very long sessions of like rendering, for example. But most games don't utilize the GPU at full power. So you get maybe 130, 140 watts of load, and that is enough with a custom BIOS. So in the system that I'm using now, I have installed the GPU this way, which is also another stupid trick that we did. So basically, what I'm doing this because the main problem I have here is that I want to make it like a cost-effective solution. So to make a cost-effective solution, I cannot swap every single cooler. So I did this, like this is opening the fins on the fin stack, and that's how I did this. And so these are various solutions that I tried. And yeah, I mean, but that should be a whole new video about this. Uh,
Yeah, and
so
me, as a perfectionist, instead of damaging the original cooler, I have figured
yeah,
out with a better solution. So what I did, I have used NZXT Kraken G12 adapter. Let me show you what that stuff is. So I think I can search in Firefox. So this is an adapter NZXT Kraken G12, which is mounted onto the graphics card like this, and then with this adapter you can install a water cooler. And I have used Corsair H80i, which is not officially supported by the support page, but it fits, and I can show some videos of how it all looks like. Unfortunately, because the mounting bracket is attached to the original cooler and not to the PCB, this means that after installing this NZXT bracket, I no longer have possibility to attach this IO bracket or mounting bracket, so I will have to do something about it. And another problem with these Teslas is that, Gabriele, can you show that strange server
yeah.
mounting bracket?
So I bought them from two different sellers, and the first batch came with like somehow standard uh, piece of adapter, like here. You can see that it's not standard on the low side, but here you can attach it to any motherboard. While the second batch that I got had these, and these you cannot use them on any ATX
Like
system.
it just doesn't
So
fit. You have
it
to
doesn't fit.
replace it.
I have to
And
use zip ties. I just attach zip ties to these.
okay, and I see some questions in the chat. People are asking if we can use Arctic coolers or Morpheus 2 coolers. Yes, we
Yes,
can
that's definitely.
definitely do that. And the PCB is reference design PCB for 980 Ti. So
And
if
that's
you
the
can
next one.
find them in stock, you can definitely use them. But the problem will be that you will have to somehow attach the fans, and there is no connectors on the graphics card to attach the fans. So you will have to figure out how to connect them. In the case of Corsair H80i and the NZXT thingy, I have just connected the 3-pin and 4-pin fans to the motherboard, and that was enough, even at like the base rotation speed, to keep the card under 50 degrees Celsius. So, what else can I say? You also need to take care about the cooling of the front-facing memory chips on the graphics card, because the back ones you can cool with a PCB, or sorry, not with a PCB, but with a backplate. And that backplate can cool the memory chips on the back side, but not on the front side. So here I can show what I have done for the front side. Basically, I have bought a bunch of these small radiators, which are designed for Raspberry Pi, and attach them onto the memory chips. Unfortunately, these radiators will just refuse to get attached to these VRM components, but it's not that big of a deal, because with the NZXT active fan right on top over here, it cools down pretty well and you don't have any issues. Are you guys planning to use the Tesla M40 for gaming? Yes, we plan to use Tesla M40 for gaming, and I'm gonna tell how to do that. So, in my slides I have covered how do we cool this thing. Basically, you need to come up with a custom cooling solution. We have also touched the mounting part, and now it's time to talk about the power part. So here is the GPU, and over here there is an 8-pin connector, but this 8-pin connector, it's not PCI Express 8-pin connector. It's the same connector as you would connect to your CPU power on the motherboard, and which looks like this. So you can technically inject into the motherboard the 6-pin PCI Express power connector, but do not do that, because the polarity of the ground and 12 volts on this connector is the opposite. So you need some kind of adapter to be able to get one extra 8-pin power connector to get the power for the Tesla. And the problem is that some power supplies, they have two of those 8-pin connectors, but they are 4+4, so it's like, not sure if you can see it well, but I will try to, no, it doesn't detach. But anyway.
Also, another issue that you get is that this dent in the PCB is too small.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So on many power supplies, the 8-pin power connector comes as 4+4, and then this one is too thick, and you can't connect it in there. You need one which is very thin, like this one, and only then you can connect it to the graphics card. On AliExpress, you can buy. No,
this.
Never do that.
Which I did on mine. I just do this. You see?
Wow.
I just cut the part, part of the dent.
Yeah, in Italy they do whatever they want, and in Sweden we are trying to build nice looking, perfectly assembled computers. So that's why I am not advising you to do that. Anyway, on AliExpress you can buy adapters which are accepting two PCI Express 6-pin or 8-pin power connectors, and then outputting one CPU power, which is okay for Tesla. Or you can buy such one, which I have, which is two Molex into one 8-pin. I don't recommend it because the power supply might not be strong enough on the Molex connectors. And another option is to have...
I would like then to connect to this question about the power consumption and stuff. I see some people asking about mining, and so we'll talk about that in a second.
I don't think I'm gonna talk much about mining because I'm not a mining fan, but we'll see.
Of course.
Anyway, one more option is to have such Y splitter where you connect CPU power on this side and then you're getting two connectors on the other side. But depending on your motherboard layout and which slot you installed your Tesla, this white splitter might not be enough to connect both. But just keep that in mind and you will be fine.
So yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, like the nice thing about Maxwell, as I like to think about it, like power consumption and everything, is that Maxwell was very optimized on the power consumption side. So that's why it's much better than the Kepler version. The Kepler version is like performing about half the speed of the M40, like the K40 or the K20 are performing about half of the M40, because you're very, very much power limited on those boards because they have such massive chips, and just try to keep them running at a decent frequency. You naturally get like 240, 250 watts of maximum power draw. So the Maxwell version is much more efficient. So you get like double the performance at the same power. It's still not efficient enough to mine. The point is that when you're mining, you're really thinking about like your efficiency. You have to think about running 24 hours a day and like taking care of how much electricity you spend. So Maxwell was never a good mining solution and a good mining architecture. Even back then, when one of the first mining boom came out at 2014, 2015, they were using AMD cards because AMD cards are just much better at compute, or just also much better at DirectX 12 for the matter. Which is interesting also because this card is about on same performance that the 1070 Ti, depending 1070 I would say, at a much higher power consumption. Like I would say 30 to 40% much higher power consumption than a 1070. So you get like the efficiency that is like a little bit worse, tiny little bit worse than Polaris, which is like the RX 580, RX 480. So it's not bad. It's even by today's standard, it's not terrible. Like for example, the newest 30 series graphics card are not much better than the 20 series graphic card in power consumption. So it's not terrible, but it's still not enough for mining. And we're gonna address also the issue of the power for the PSU and also from the cooling with the BIOS modding stuff. And that's we're gonna talk maybe later, I don't know, whatever. But that's an important point. I think people are very interested about like, we didn't touch the main point. It is how to get the graphic card to work in a normal computer, because we're talking about like the next steps, but we didn't talk about the first step, which is actually getting the graphic card to display output anything. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
Show you that.
Then that is the basically next topic I wanted to touch. So as I have showed before, this thingy doesn't have any video outputs. So if you want to have your monitor connected to somewhere, you will need either CPU which has integrated graphics card, for example, Intel Ultra HD 630, which can be found in basically any latest Intel CPU, will be fine. Another option is to get something as cheap and as dirty as this Nvidia Quadro, which is, I believe, is Quadro K420. You can find them wherever on eBay and the local second-hand market. But for today's video and for today's test, I have assembled myself a test system which consists of i9 10900 engineering sample QTB1. Then I have got Asus B560 motherboard, and of course the CPU has iGPU, so the monitor is connected to the iGPU, and then everything is installed on top of that.
Same setup as I am running. I'm running a MSI B460 and a QTB1 as well, of course.
Yeah. So this is the setup that I have done all the tests on, but I have also tested Tesla with the LJ1151 Mutants and Z170 motherboard, so that works. And I have also tested Threadripper using these Quadro and plus Tesla, that also works. So here I didn't find any specific issues. Now, to make these Tesla actually be recognized by your system, you need to do a few certain quirks. First, you need to disable CSM or legacy boot in the BIOS, because this Tesla is too new for that. And you need to enable, of course, UEFI. And the second thing, you need to enable above 4G decoding in the BIOS. Some platforms, for example my Threadripper, even refuse to start before I enable the 4G decoding in the BIOS if I install Tesla. So first you boot up your computer, then you go to the BIOS, you enable 4G decoding, and then you save the settings, and then you install Tesla, and then you can boot up again. One more thing that I have figured that I had problems with, that sometimes, for some stupid reason, if my HDMI cable is not properly attached to the video output, my motherboard is deciding that iGPU is not needed and trying to push video into the Tesla, but Tesla doesn't have any outputs, so that simply doesn't work. So in that case, I had to go to the BIOS and manually enable iGPU and set it as the primary video output, and then it solves the problem. I have also got an issue with the Threadripper. My MSI X399 motherboard has multiple PCI Express slots, some of them X16, some of them X8, and if I install the graphics card into the X8 slot, then the system just fails to boot, but if I install it into X16, it works well. And
I would also like to mention that I would suggest strongly to use DisplayPort for any system with a Tesla to get like high refresh rate and everything. Also, the connector is much more safe to keep inside the motherboard. I didn't have any of that issue. I already sold 2 of those systems. This is the 3rd one that I made. Never got this kind of issues. Of course, I did put the iGPU as primary output.
Well, I also think that DisplayPort is better, but in my case, I have the video capture card which only accepts HDMI, so I'm limited to HDMI to be able to record videos. So the next few things that you need to do if you want to actually use Tesla as your gaming GPU, then you need to install Nvidia Quadro drivers, but Nvidia Tesla drivers shall also work. And
yeah, they do work. In my experience, I use them.
So you need to either Nvidia Tesla or Nvidia Quadro drivers. The standard Nvidia RTX or GTX drivers are not gonna work. And depending on your game, some games are using Nvidia software which is called Physics or Physics or whatever it is called. So this one is included into the standard gaming RTX or GTX driver, but it is not included into Quadro or Tesla drivers. So if your games use this physics, you need to manually download it and install it. And don't worry, I'm going to publish these slides, so you will be able to find all the text commands you need to execute and everything you need to find on my website, and I will also publish the links with the guides and tutorials how to do that and how to mod the BIOS. So there will be also a link to Gabriele's website where you will find some extra interesting info. And the last thing that you need to do to make this Tesla to work actually as a 3D gaming GPU is to open command line and use Nvidia tool which is called Nvidia-SMI to switch mode of your Nvidia Tesla from compute mode to gaming mode. And after that you can just reboot to Windows, and then Windows will detect that you have got a new GPU, and you will be able to assign the GPU to your applications and start using it for gaming. I think I will give you a few minutes of talking, Gabriele, and I will start my Tesla system so I can show it live.
Oh, interesting, yeah. Just to add something to your slide and everything, sometimes I had to go to the, I don't know what is that related to, but I have to go to the NVIDIA control panel. I will do this like that. And you have to manually select the GPU to work for graphical applications. Once again, after you do the command on the command line. But that is like quite easy to detect, because if you don't do that, like the GPU performance is terrible, and you will see that. You can also disable ACC memory. That gives a little tiny performance boost. So there are some other quirks. So it's not a plug and play solution, but it's easy enough to like give it to a customer. In my experience, I mean, most people just use a couple of games. I did this. These builds were always done for playing Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone, because that's very popular here at the moment. Like many people stream that, and yeah, that's what I tested with, and it's amazing. It's perfect. So we always build these systems with i9 GPU, i9 engineering sample CPUs. So we use cheap B460, or we use the Z490 motherboards if the customer needs Thunderbolt, which happens for my clients. And then you just run through the iGPU, and this system is very similar to how notebooks work these days. Like Optimus works in notebooks, whereas you have like the display output is done by the iGPU. So the display is connected to the Intel graphics card, but the actual rendering has been done by the Tesla card. That's why it's very important to get the display port output, because it's the only way you can go above 75 hertz or even 60 hertz on 4K, on 2K. So you really have to be sure that you get a motherboard that has DisplayPort output, which are not the cheapest one, but as long as you get the benefit, that is very important. I would strongly recommend to do that. In my testing, the B460i it's gaming edge from MSI. I did some testing on a couple of motherboards, and this turned out to be like the best one in terms of just like power usage and features, and the fact that it has the keyboard, of course, and it's also quite cheap for the Italian market. And it's ITX. I like doing ITX builds. I even thought it's hard to fit this in an ITX case because of the cooling solution you have to make. You can do that if you use the modern BIOS, that you're on the verge of like very hot temperatures for the GPU. But I just use ATX cases, and I put the fan.
A couple of questions. You can use this method with basically any iGPU, as far as I know. I have not tested with many, but I have read online that people are using it with the Ryzen APUs, which have integrated GPU.
Yeah, that's what level 1 Touch does.
Yeah, so and I have also tested it with my LJ1200 and the i9 QTB1, as well as Mutants, which have iGPU, so that works. I would be surprised if there will be some other iGPU which doesn't support this method, as long as you have latest drivers installed. So, and one more question was if it is possible to assign Tesla as a GPU to a virtual machine. I have not done it myself.
I didn't know that. I don't know that, but there are many videos by Craft Computing, which I think uses those solutions. It talks about those. Also, level 1 Touch does the same. So that's what they're designed for. So that's what should work. We're talking about things that shouldn't work. But connecting the M40 to IM is like, that's what this card is designed for.
As long as your motherboard is actually supporting the PCI Express pass-through, as long as
Italy.
your system supports it, that is possible. And I have actually read an article where a person it was actually not an article but a Reddit thread, when a person done that, and in that case Tesla was the only GPU which was assigned for that virtual machine, and in that case Windows would not be able to mess up with the hardware and pick like power savings or high performance GPU. And power savings or high performance GPU, I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. So as you can see in my task manager, I have GPU 0, which is Intel Graphics UHD 630 and Nvidia Tesla M40 with 12 gigs of RAM. So by default, Windows will automatically pick the first GPU to run your application. Sometimes Windows will be smart enough to pick the high performance GPU if it detects that your application needs some extra power, but in general it will not do that. So what you do, you go to display settings, then you scroll to the very bottom, and then you go to the graphics settings, and here you can click the browse button and find the application that you want to run with your Tesla, and then it will add here another item. So for example, Battlefield 5, and then over here I can click options, and here I can pick which GPU I want to run this application with. After picking high performance, the application will be running using Nvidia Tesla, but the video output will still go through the ultra graphics from Intel. And this is the way how you make it work, and it is also the way how it works for laptops.
So that's what I was talking about. So that's why this system does work. I wouldn't say flawlessly for me at the moment, because this is something that has been done in notebooks since I think 2011. There were some, like, Nvidia has some specific like dies that it don't even have the display output part. Some like lower end, like the GT 830, 820 cards from notebooks. They don't even have an output display. And so this method is not is like it's a hack, but it's not something new. So it's kind of like widespread in notebooks already. And I've heard that the new version, some new builds of Windows are automatically sensing when the application needs more power, and they're automatically switching the application to the high performance GPU. I didn't test this because I didn't download the engineering builds, the testing builds, insider versions, but that's what I heard.
I have actually tested that. I have tested Windows Insider build using like the latest available at the time, and it was not smart enough to detect the applications that I needed. Like it was still attempting to run games with the iGPU.
Okay.
So maybe it works with like professional apps, but it didn't work for me to automatically detect it for games. But anyway, on the screen right now, I am showing a video from running Assassin's Creed Valhalla benchmark, and there you can see that Nvidia Tesla is working at 100%, and it is also slightly overclocked. And while Intel UHD 630 is just running at under 10% load, which is understandable because it still needs to do some job to output the video actually to the display. And I have tested all my 18 games, which are, you can see them on the screen. I think I will maximize this one for now so you can see a bit on the screen. So here are the games I have tested. I have tested Battlefield 5, Far Cry New Dawn, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Watch Dogs Legion, F1 2019, Dirt Rally 2, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Black Ops Cold War, Total War 3 Kingdom, Horizon Zero Dawn, Hitman 2, Metro Exodus, Red Dead Redemption 2, Mafia 2 Definitive Edition, and Digital Combat Simulator World. And all of them worked with Nvidia Tesla. So that's a very good result, I would say, because you would expect that something would go wrong if you're running it like on a wrong GPU, so to say, but in reality it just runs. I have got a couple of crashes in Battlefield 5 when I was attempting to change screen resolution from the menu settings.
Yeah.
But apart of that, I also got a few crashes from Digital Combat Simulator when attempting to change also the graphical
I had the
settings.
same issue with Warzone. Like if you try to change the resolution while you're in game, it does crash. The system becomes unresponsive for a couple of seconds and then goes to desktop. And weirdly enough, the same game that has like when you play Warzone, you have like the character in the front of the screen during also in the menu, but it doesn't crash there, so you can change the resolution in while you're there. It also has something to do with like choosing between like full screen windowed or just full screen. I'm not an expert at that. I'm not a gamer, so I don't know which setting gives the best performance. So I'm really not sure about that, but I have to report that it does crash on that kind of things, but nothing else actually. The only games I played were Battlefield 4, Warzone, and Magic Arena, which is not a lightweight. It's a very lightweight game, so it doesn't really load the GPU at all.
And a couple of more issues that I have got is that if I try to run AIDA64, for example, GPU benchmark, it just says that it's not supported. I can show it here. And VRA benchmark for me, for some reason on this platform, it just
It did
crashes.
work on me. It did work for me on CUDA. I was able to get 274 CUDA VRAs with the version 5 benchmark, which is kind of good for the undervolted BIOS.
Maybe I have an outdated VRA benchmark. I will have to check that.
I
But if
can
I
run it now.
hmm?
I can just run it now, I
But
think.
if I am running or AIDA64 stress, sorry, not the stress test, but the benchmark, it just goes okay. Well, apparently now it is working. Gabriele, it works with your modified BIOS for some stupid reason.
I don't think that's the issue, but yeah,
I
it
don't,
did
I
work for
don't,
me
I
on the
don't know.
VRA.
Anyway, the AIDA64 benchmark is actually running now, but it didn't run for me before. I don't know what did I do. Maybe I have installed some Windows updates, but weird things happens. I have tried multiple times and it just refused to do that, but now it is obviously doing that on Tesla M40. And
So
also, some professional apps might not recognize and might not support Tesla. For example, DaVinci Resolve 17 and 17.1 do not work with the Tesla M40, but the latest Resolve 17.2 works, and you can actually use the Tesla for your video production. Sorry,
you can see
Gabriele,
that
the image
VRA is
quality is
detecting.
way too bad.
Yeah, I understand. Uh, yeah, I just showing that the VRA engine sees the CUDA. I mean, anything that runs on CUDA will work because it's just like it doesn't use the function to display anything. It's just an accelerator or a render device, and that works perfectly on the M40. That's what they're built for. So I would say that it was weird that you can get it to run on the DaVinci Resolve 17. I had a client that bought the system for Premiere Pro, and it's amazing for like real-time color correction. It works perfectly because that's something that needs a lot of VRAM to do,
Yeah,
and he's very happy with the result. And he was running at 1080, not Ti, and he says that this card is actually better in some places and worse in others. So it's a similar performance. Uh, and he also added the undervolted card as everyone did, so
well, the thing is
not an
that
issue.
I think the Resolve 17 didn't initially include the support for M40, but the 17.2 included support for Teslas, and now I can use it in Resolve as
Amazing.
well. So that's pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna try to run VRA benchmark on Tesla again, but I have version 4, so let me
I did
see.
version 5.
Yeah, I
I
will
ran
try
version
that.
5.
So I have disabled everything like VRA GPU Nvidia Tesla on the left. Let's try to run it and see if that does something, because it was crashing with the default BIOS for some stupid reason. And after I flushed your custom BIOS, yeah.
I wouldn't say that that's the reason, but if it is, well, that's nice.
Well,
I'm also gonna run the V-Ray benchmark again.
I have no clue what it is the reason, but now it is just running fine. Like, very hard for me to say. Maybe I had some screwed overclocking settings. And we have a question about overclocking. So, regarding overclocking, you can use MSI Afterburner, but MSI Afterburner is kind of limited. You cannot overclock it to the limits that this card is actually capable of. So you need a custom BIOS which is pre-overclocked for this graphics card to be able to achieve the best of your graphics card. How many Teslas have you got, Gabriele? Was it like 10?
No, it's 21. Considering that you took one from me.
Yeah, okay, so you have got 21 Teslas, and most of them are able to get like plus 900 megahertz on the memory, right?
I would say most get one plus 800. 900 is like, I would say I'm 1/3 of them. Like the worst I got is 700.
Okay.
Usually on the 800 side.
I have got two Tesla M40s, and both of them are able to work stable with plus 900 megahertz on memory clock. So
just remember that whenever you test, you have to do like some extensive testing, because some gaming giants are just much higher taxing on frequency, even if they don't use a lot of memory. Like, for example, weird enough, Magic Arena is very sensitive to memory overclocking. That's something I test with. While 3D Mark doesn't ever crash because of memory. You can set the memory to insane values on 3D Mark, run very good scores. I think that it doesn't crash, but you get errors. So you get actually some missed frame maybe, because at some point you get lower core, but you never get a crash on 3D Mark. So it's hard to say, it's hard to talk about like this actually. So I just run a V-Ray GPU CUDA. It gave me 342 VPATs, but that's version 5. I can send you version 5. It's 200 megabyte. Maybe I can send it to you straight away.
You don't have to. I can download it from my network myself.
Okay.
And people are asking, isn't Tesla M40's kind of bad value compared to second-hand 980 Ti for 250 euros? Yes, for 250 euros, it's a very bad value. But I have bought mine for 130 euros each.
And that's not very true, but I think it ended up being 150 and a little bit more in the end with all the taxes and everything.
Yeah, like because I had to add the taxes to import it into European Union and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
But in general, if you can find a 980 Ti for gaming for around 200 euros, definitely go for 980 Ti.
Yeah.
Only if you need 12 gigs of a VRAM for your video production, or if you're desperate to get a GPU and nothing is available, then you go to Tesla.
The point is that if you try to source a 980 Ti in the used market, you have to figure out like how much, who used it, and where to get them. You gotta get to some person and get it. I have a business. I run a business. I have to make many machines, so I can't go and just spend my whole days running around the city to get 980 Ti's. It doesn't work like that, and it's just like a different kind of vibe to get. And also, I kind of find that for that price, really, it seems impossible to me. Like my friend bought one of those cards from me and sold us his 1660 Ti for 550 euros. So he got a Tesla for 250, and that's profit. And I don't know. I don't know where you live in, but 250 euros for a 980 Ti at this time is kind of good value.
Anyway,
so people were asking about.
Here you can see I'm showing on the screen that MSI Combustor is running with a MSI Afterburner, and in MSI Afterburner I can slightly adjust the power limit target. I can slightly overclock the GPU core, and I can also overclock memory. But right now I have already modified BIOS with pre-overclocked memory and with pre-overclocked GPU core, so the frequencies are higher. But I can still demonstrate that I can still try to increase the GPU core clock, and it may crash, but hopefully it's not gonna crash. No, it doesn't crash, and you can see that frequency increases and the system is still stable. I know that my card crashes at plus 1000 megahertz on memory, so I'm not gonna try that, but I can try to overclock a little bit more the core. Let's say we add extra 50 megahertz. So yeah, it goes. And actually I have got my card running almost stable at 1300 megahertz, which is 1.3 gigahertz, which is a very good overclock for these Teslas. But you really need to have good cooling.
Core. Yeah, you get the stock V core. You get a higher power draw because of the slightly higher frequency. And the one that you're running now, I think it's slightly undervolted to get like a more reasonable power efficiency. So there's the BIOS at, well, I don't know which one you're using actually at the moment, so I don't remember that. That
I'm using the one with the 1224 megahertz.
that one is slightly undervolted.
Okay.
Very slightly. I can't, like 2 steps undervolt.
Anyway, for everyone who is interested, all the modified BIOS will be available to download by the link in the video description, which will appear after this live stream. Like, it's not yet available, but I will add it later. And I have a question about the VRAM on the graphics card. So I have used my external thermometer to measure the temperatures, and with this active cooling on the NZXT fan, the VRAM is staying under 60 degrees Celsius, even after removing the original heatsink, but I am keeping the backplate, and the backplate is attached to the graphics card with the thermal pads. Let me see if I can find some pictures so I can show how that looks like on the back side. I think, Gabriele, you sent me some pictures how you disassembled it, but I can't find it right now. But
Well, yeah, I think they're on my Instagram.
yeah.
So I will try. I'm just trying to, for fun, I'm just trying to run format. I might crash. I don't know if I'm gonna crash the system. I hope not. So let's see. I was wondering about the VRM temperature as well. So I'm running the card now at where is it? 0.93 volts. This is undervolted card. It's using 220 watts of power, and it's running at 70 degrees at the moment. It's not rising because I think that the CPU fan is starting to spin at the moment, which it was not doing in the beginning. I was looking for some. I don't know. There's not any VRM measurement for the temperature. There's a hotspot temperature. Hotspot temperature is 88, but I'm using 230 watts at the moment, and this is on my like test system, which is like super silent. The system is not doing, not giving any noise. I don't know. No one can hear it. I think can hear it. I think.
Okay, so
Um,
here I have got some graphs to demonstrate what kind of results you can get if you are overclocking the Tesla. So for overclocking's sake, I have tested a few games, not as many as I have tested for the overall benchmark. And we can see that on average, after I have increased the core clock by 112 megahertz, which is maximum you can achieve with MSI Afterburner without customized BIOS. On average, the performance increase is 10 to 20%, which is really good. But also keep in mind that I have increased the memory clock by 900 megahertz. And I didn't touch voltage, so the voltage was the stock voltage, so it didn't really increase the power consumption that much. And one more interesting slide is the 3D Mark scores. Here I have got results for stock overclocked and then overclocked with a custom BIOS. And we can see that each of these are getting like kind of substantial increase in performance. Firestrike, for example, with the stock is given around 15,000 points. With the MSI Afterburner overclock, we are getting close to 18,000 points. And with a custom overclocked BIOS, we are getting 19,000 points.
yeah, it's crazy that that BIOS, the one that is running at the maximum GPU speed, is still at stock voltage.
Yeah, and I have to say that that BIOS was not 100% stable. Like
Yeah.
every now and then I could get a crash, but it was still stable to even play games and run the Firestrike at this clock frequency. So the clock frequency for me was 1340 megahertz and 3900 on VRAM or memory with the stock voltage, and it was still almost stable. And for time spy, we're getting scores 5,000, 5.5, and 6,000. So every time doing an overclock, you're getting an extra bump in performance. And of course, the power consumption increases as well, but that's what you have to be prepared. So good cooling for this graphics card is really recommended, but if you're on a tight budget, go the Gabriele route.
Also, if you care about the environment and you have a power supply that is not capable of that, of course. You can also think about it like if you get a very good sample for the memory overclock, then it might make more sense to invest in a good power supply, a good um, GPU cooler, and then get the most out of the core. If you get maybe one sample that does plus 600, plus 700 on the core, on the RAM, you can go the undervolting route and you're not missing much. Because I figured out that on my undervolting BIOS, you're not getting much of an increase when you run the memory at plus 900. While on the other side, I was kind of let down by the fact that I was trying to get even lower wattage, but the GPU scales very badly under 1100, which by the way is the frequency that they are running at for stock. Like if you go lower than the stock frequency, you will get like very much worse performance for a very tiny gain in like temperatures and everything. So the sweet spot I think would be between 1100 and 1300 megahertz at stock voltages. No, sorry, at stock voltages, at undervolted voltages. So what I mean is that you can run it at 1100 with a very high undervolt, like I am doing, to keep the card very, very silent and efficient. Or you can run it like at stock voltages, which is around 1.1 volt and 1300 megahertz. Anything higher than that is kind of pointless because the memory is not that fast, the architecture is kind of old, and you need to get some massive system to cool it down. It's kind of like it's common knowledge. I was doing those cards. I was modding VBIOS for Maxwell when Maxwell was actually like not really new, but I started building computers in 2015, so it was like already out for 1 year. But there was kind of specific talk about like Maxwell being very efficient at around 1.1 volt maximum, and then you get like much lower efficiency. So this score that you have there are kind of like the good scores. You can even get higher than that. You can get like you can increase the voltage, but you're not gonna keep much higher because uh, you're going
Yeah.
to like run the VRM very hot. You're gonna run like too much power through the HP connector. You can still do that. And also, it's kind of interesting to know that during gameplay, during actual games, the core is not used as much as during like a benchmark. So, for example, if I run my VBIOS, which has a 170 watts power limit, it will run at stock frequency with the undervolt around 130 watts when playing games, like for example playing Warzone, which is kind of heavy on the GPU. But it will run 170 watts when testing on Firestrike or TimeSpy. So there's also some point in like doing like some extreme clock on the core, and then just keep the TDP limit at 250 to 160, so you can get like higher, like actual gaming performance, get a little bit higher, even if your benchmark score don't improve.
Well, right now I am running the Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark with a slight overclock to 1225 megahertz, and the card is staying right under 200 watt. So I consider it to be a pretty good result. And
Yeah,
one more thing I wanted to mention is
45
that
degrees.
hmm?
45 degrees.
Yeah, 45 degrees, and this is with my liquid cooler, which I don't even hear. Like, the fan is rotating at the default speed, and that's enough to cool this beast. So, one more thing I wanted to mention is that the gameplay was surprisingly extremely smooth. The frame rate might not have been like the highest, but I was not experiencing the frame drops and the stutters which I was experiencing with the GTX 1060 3 GB, which I have used for my friend's computer. And obviously, this comes to the fact that games are starting to use more than 3 gigs of VRAM, and when that extra VRAM is needed, Tesla has plenty more left, while the
Yeah.
1060 doesn't have any more. And if you plan to play at 1440p, or maybe you are a maniac and want to play at 4K with a Tesla, then the 12 gigs of VRAM will be very handy.
Yeah, the 12 gigabyte VRAM buffer is not something that would make you go for that card if you're gaming, but it's surely nice to have.
And
It can help with the minimum frame rates for
for
sure.
it is also very useful for professionals, because for 4K video
Yes,
editing, even for 1440p
for sure.
video editing, extra VRAM is really needed. That's why these Teslas, they have their own niche, and if you can find for a good price, go grab one. There is possible to make it work for games and for professional workloads. But if you can find a GPU for a better price, just go for that one. Because again, mess with this cooler is really annoying, and you need to figure out how to solve many
And let
small
me stress,
details.
let me stress that fact that, like, I think the BIOS modding is what really makes this card shine, and that's something very handy if you can know if you can do that, or if you get something to do for you. Because when you have like any other like higher cards like Pascal, whatever the name, I don't remember, like Volta and everything else after Maxwell, you cannot mod the BIOS on those cards, so you cannot customize to your needs, and you have to run Afterburner on the background all the time. You have to figure out whether it's running or not, and it's kind of like annoying to me. Also, Afterburner is an app that is staying there. It keeps like the system lightly loaded. It's much more convenient for me to like just do a custom BIOS and forget about it. Even if I reinstall the system, if the clients just want to wipe the system, it still gets the same performance.
Yeah,
And you can
absolutely.
customize that. You can decide what do you want from the card. You can decide whether you want like silent and efficient operation, which is of course on my side because I like undervolting, and I like to keep the stock cooler, which is still possible if you do the undervolting BIOS. Remember that you've shown the 3D printed fan. The 3D printed fan was tested with the standard BIOS. The standard BIOS is using at least 30% more power than the BIOS model at the same power, at the same frequencies. So if you do the undervolting, uh, you really don't need much of a beefier cooler solution. You can run the stock cooler. You can open the fins as I shown in the beginning, which is this,
But at the
which
same
is like
time,
I know
if
it
you
sounds crazy, but if you put a fan on this, it it will perfectly fine with the custom undervolted BIOS.
yeah, but first, it looks ugly, and second, without overclock, you're losing about up to 30% of performance of this card. So, like for myself, if I'm buying one of the Teslas, I will probably go for the NZXT bracket and a Corsair or any other compatible liquid cooler to install, because otherwise I find it triggering that you're getting an ugly thing into your system, which
Yeah,
is
it's
underperforming.
different. It's not underperforming. It's performing on the same level as of a like 980 Ti stock, or a whatever stock card you get from the core. Like this card is stock 1114 megahertz, and that's the same exact frequency you get with the undervolted BIOS, just at a much lower power.
Yeah, but you don't have any headroom for overclocking.
Yeah, I know, but you don't need to buy another cooler. That's the
Yeah.
point. It's like you can do whatever you want. It's a tinkering thing. You like I mean, as I told you, it's like I cannot buy on the used market and sustain my business because I would have to spend a lot of time outside of my office to add for graphic cards. But at the same time, I never found any 980 Ti for lower than 300 euros at the moment. Like never, not never. It used to be like that. They used to be 200 euros 1 year ago, but now they're 300. So this card is cheaper than that, and it's like it's a solution for this GPU situation. It's not the perfect solution. It's not uh, without its tinkering, but it's a fun solution,
Yeah, it's definitely a
and
fun
it, it,
solution.
it works.
And if you're that kind of a guy who is actually running some, let's say, machine learning, or if you're running some GPU calculations, maybe if you're using Python machine learning or any other stuff like that, then 12 gigs of a VRAM will be very handy for you. And you can even slap two of these Teslas together. And here Gabriele is demonstrating his cooling mods, which are, let's say, terrifying. But he likes them, so this is probably his best one, where he's touching a fan using some cardboard. So
These are all super silent, and they work with the other voltage BIOS.
yeah, so unfortunately, Nvidia is a badass. They have blocked the BIOS modding after the 9 series cards, but we have what we have.
Yes, that's
I
very
am
unfortunate.
I am getting the best regards from the Brazilian Intel Xeon community. Well, thank you for supporting, and it's always nice to have some regular fans and supporters. Not sure if you're a fan or just a Xeon follower. Anyway, one
Yeah,
more thing.
this is like the 2678 V3 of the GPUs somehow.
Yeah,
It's a professional
2678 V3.
card. Yes, it's
You can say
professional
that.
card. I mean, it's slightly worse. Like the 26, I mean, it's not that good. It's not that good. The 2678 V3, especially when it was like lower priced. I mean, especially when Zen was not out, Ryzen was not that good. Like in 2018 when they first came out, they were amazing. Like you didn't have like uh, I mean, it was not that hard for Intel back then, so prices were much higher for CPUs. Now it's kind of useless now because the prices have increased because people are actually using those PCI lanes to run SSDs for Chia, so the prices increased. But back then they were amazing, and I built so many builds with that. I have clients that do video editing, and they want all the SSDs to run at full speed for video editing. And this is similar. This has like this shines in professional applications, but it's still good for gaming. It's very future proof somehow because you have a massive VRAM buffer, and yeah,
And
it's
one
nice
more
to have.
thing to mention is that when you're installing a liquid cooler like Corsair Hydra or any other series, you need to make sure that you can route the tubes which are coming out from that. Because it will block a few next PCI Express slots in your motherboard. And if you plan to install there like a secondary GPU, or if you want to install an extra PCI Express expansion card or something like that, just need to make sure that you're having flexible enough tubes so you can bend them and install whatever you want in the motherboard. In my case, for example, Hydro 80i has pretty thick and pretty rigid tubes, and it's next to impossible to bend them, so I will have to figure something out when I will try to install it into the chassis without actually putting too much pressure on the graphics card in the PCI Express slot itself. Anything else interesting you would like to mention about it? Because I think we have covered pretty much everything, and I will post links to useful resources and modified BIOSes, and also to your blog in the video description after the live stream. But right now you can see everything on your screen.
I was leaving some comments, very nice comments, and yeah, one guy is asking, can you solder the connectors? Uh, it's possible that with some, if you can try to flash the 980 Ti BIOS. I mean, not the Maxwell, Titan X Maxwell BIOS. I wonder if that works because there should be some like hardware difference because of the ACC RAM. So that's probably different. So it could be that Nvidia easily could have been tying the BIOS to being ACC or not. At the same time, I wonder why they should do that. So it could work. It's up to you to figure out because I see no advantage using any kind of custom BIOS. Like I'm not sorry using any kind of like Titan X Maxwell or an 980 BIOS on that because I don't have the connectors and I don't even have like the. I thought about it. On the Tesla BIOS, you still have the fan control, which is stupid because they don't have any fans there. So I'm quite sure that the fan headers are working because I was thinking about that because I don't like how like if you have to cool this thing down, you have to somehow correlate the heat that the car gets to some fan, which you cannot control through the GPU. So you have to control it through the motherboard, and that's annoying because you will either have like a fan that is always spinning, or you will have to like connect the fan that is blowing through the Tesla, connect it to a system fan, and pretend that the system fan will understand when the card is hot, which doesn't happen until the card is super hot and the system also got hot. So it could be useful to kind of solder on the the headers for the fans, but at the same time, the fan headers are covered by the PCB by the cooling system. So we didn't try that. As much as I love tinkering, and I would say I love useless tinkering, but not that useless tinkering. So I didn't try to flash that. I was like not scary, but just that doesn't make any sense to me. I
Well,
don't have the soldering skills to do that, and I can't do that for all the cards that I get.
I have a bit of a shorter answer for the question. First, you can surely solder the display outputs on the graphics card. Second, we don't know if it's gonna work or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Another thing that is kind of crazy to mention now is that this card would have been much worse in a different world where Intel is better. Because if Intel CPUs were actually better and like more costly than they are now, you would have to pay a premium for the iGPU. But nowadays, with the market being that way, that Ryzen CPUs are commanding a price premium because they're more efficient and the platform is just better, you don't have to pay for the iGPU, basically. Like the iGPU is free, especially if you're running an engineering sample, because yeah, you have the F series processors, which are kind of like slightly cheaper than the non-F version. I would never get those because the iGPU is very useful for me in any kind of situation. I would never give up an iGPU for 10 euros, 20 euros, even 30 euros. But if you go for the engineering sample, all the engineering samples have iGPU. And so the iGPU is basically free. It's already there. And another thing that I want to mention is that it's especially interesting for 11 gen iGPU because the 11 gen iGPU is as very good on the encoding and decoding side. It has VC1 encoders and decoders, so it's very efficient for video editing. So if you pair this 11 gen GPU integrated GPU for encoding and decoding, and you run this beast for CUDA, for like denoising or like color correction, you get a very capable video editing machine. I did that with the 10th generation. It's already very good, and it's gonna be much better with the 11th generation iGPU. So that's something to consider because like uh, video editors are very thirsty for VRAM.
So, I guess we are kind of done here. Like, all important subjects are covered, all important information is gathered. Unless there will be some other questions, I think we can wrap up. What engineering samples would you recommend to combine with the
2TB1,
M40? Uh,
2TB1, the one we're running, it's a very balanced system. It's a 10 core. It doesn't pull much power because it's like a slightly lower clock than the official version, but it uses much less power, especially if you undervolt it, which I of course recommend. And my motherboard is amazing. Like this motherboard, like I know I'm obsessed about power consumption because I like to build small systems, and heat is important. So this motherboard has some kind of crazy settings inside there because the undervolt is limited to -50, but then you have another control which is called like low light power mode for CPU, and you combine those and you get super low power consumption for the CPU,
I
like
don't think
80
I
to
can
90
find the
watts.
QTB1 on AliExpress anymore. They might have been sold.
That's sad. That's sad. You can use it. You can use the i5 as well. I mean, this card would not be limited by any i5. This is not like a high refresh card because it has like slightly lower clock frequency than no, not slightly. It has slightly lower much lower clock frequency than new cards. But you have massive RAM buffer, so it's better to run like 60 FPS with high quality than it is running like 120 FPS at low quality. So a 10600 is fine. 10400, sorry, 10400 engineering sample. I don't know the code name for that because I don't buy them, but I know they were there.
I think AliExpress is screwing me up somehow. Like, it's not showing the relevant
Yeah, somehow
results
it
at
happens.
all. Like, it's completely stupid. I will try to find it through my previous orders. Because you can also use it with mutants on LJ1151
Yeah.
platform.
That's also amazing value. If you can find some, if you have any old, especially Gigabyte motherboards laying around, it's very easy to use that. Gigabyte boards are also the best to me, so you can
Because
easily do that with the mutants.
the Gigabyte board allows you to flash the modified BIOS for mutants straight from the BIOS, so you don't need any special flash programmers or anything like that. So that's why Gigabyte is better. But other than that, everything else except MSI also works. So this is
Yeah.
the engineering sample we are talking about. This is QQLS. You can slap it on a Z170, B365 motherboard, Z270, B150, B250, and it has iGPU Intel UHD 630. It's exactly the same as Core i9-10900. So this one works perfectly fine with Tesla. I have tested it myself, and I will try to find the other engineering sample, which is right now actually a bit more pricey than it used to be, but I'm gonna show it
Oh,
either way.
yeah, it's QTB1 is still there, but it's more pricey.
Yeah.
It's increased in price.
So QTB1.
But the 11 Gen 1 is lower in price, so it doesn't make sense to get it. I mean, it does make sense to get the 10 Gen. I would say no because I mean, since you get a much better iGPU on the 11 Gen, even though the 11 Gen is it's slightly lower performance, especially at high frame rates because it has slightly higher latencies. This card, as again, is not doing high refresh gaming. I mean, it can do that. I'm playing Warzone at 100 FPS, but I noticed that between like setting everything to low, if you get set everything to low on Warzone, you get 120 FPS. If you get set everything to medium or slightly higher, less high, you get 100, and you get like a very nice experience. So I just played with everything like between high, medium, and high, and 100 FPS. That's how I like to play it. So
Someone is asking
even
if
getting
I'm
11
gonna review the Honda H310 CD3 motherboard, which is compatible with the Intel 6, 7, 8, and 9th Gen CPUs.
I don't see the point in that because if you have older CPUs running around, you might as well get an older motherboard, and those CPUs are not good value. It's better to sell them and get a engineering sample if you go that route. If you want to get something that is like tinkery, you might as well sold your old official CPU and get a new engineering sample. And also because those motherboards are usually crappy, so you cannot run even like maybe even a 4 core at high frequency without like having massive VRM temperatures. I would not recommend that at all.
No, not
I mean,
me.
I don't like to cheap out on motherboards. I don't like cheaping out on motherboards.
So people were
you gotta-
asking about the 11th Gen engineering sample, and it is this one, QV1J.
J.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one is, I think, is the best value for money, but there is also QV something else. Let me try to find it.
These are basically the i7 and the i9, and everyone knows the i7 is better.
Well, it is better for the money. Like
Yeah.
the i9 has a much higher price for just a tiny bit more performance. So this one is also the i7 technically engineering sample. It costs slightly more and it has slightly higher all-core turbo. And this one is QVYE, and the best one, which I would buy for myself if I would need one, it is QV1J. I have actually planned a review of one of the CPUs, but I'm not sure when I will be able to get them. So once I get it, I will try to test it. And another interesting engineering sample is QTJ1. This is also a mutant, but it is 8 core, and it is supposed to be the same as 10700. But let me try to find it if I can do that. Yeah, I found it. So let me show you here. So this one, QTJ1, this one is supposed to be a Comet Lake. What was after Coffee Lake? Was it Comet Lake?
I think so. I don't remember the code names.
Yeah,
that's be that.
Anyway,
and then the Coffee Lake. So yeah.
Anyway, this one will be very interesting to compare with other 10 gens and 11 gens engineering samples, because this one claims to be Comet Lake, but it is slapping into 1151 motherboard, so it will probably need a motherboard with good VRM, otherwise these 8 cores will suffer from a reduced amount of power, but other than that, it would be really interesting to test it, and I want to do that, but I'm not sure when or if I will be able to get the CPUs at all. Someone is asking if I can increase a bit volume because it's a bit too low. I think I can try that. Think I can try to do some extra, like 3 decibels extra. Is this any better? And I can also increase a bit Gabriele. See if that's gonna be better. So let's see.
Inspector meltdown patched. I don't know. I run Inspector on all my systems to disable the patches of software to get better performance. I'm quite sure that 10 Gen has some patches already enabled. I'm quite sure that 11 Gen has more patches enabled already on hardware. So I would say that probably they are patched, which means slightly lower performance if they were not patched, but you can't do anything about that. I don't know even why would you care, because it's like such a niche like case scenario, and you get herd immunity anyway. Like everyone is patching that. So if you're not patching that, as long as no one, as long as not everyone does that, as long as like as low percentage of us does that, you're not gonna get infected anyway because no one's gonna try to exploit that.
Well, you are being as a typical optimistic Italian. I always try to
Yeah, I am.
test the configuration which you're getting out of the box, like what windows you have, so people are not trying to mash their heads on the wall why he's getting this core and I'm getting this core. And also these patches, once you disable them, when Windows is installing updates, Windows will enable them again. And well, it's coming with all sort of a mess, and in some cases it decreases performance, in other cases it increases performance. I just don't bother with it.
Oh yeah, some people is asking about Quadro M40. Is like this is kind of like a confused question because Quadro and Teslas are different things. Like the Quadro is just a professional card which has display outputs. It probably has ACC memory, so you get like much better stability. It has lower clocks and lower power draw to get like the best stability. And used Quadro are somehow decent at the moment because they're not inflated as much as gaming cards. Like you get a 1060, 1060 has the name. So somehow, crazy enough, you can get good deals on Quadro cards nowadays, especially because you can really uh, like rise the power limit of Quadro cards very easily if you have a good cooling solution. If you just have a fan blowing through it, so you can get decent Quadros in the used market at the moment, especially on the mobile side. The Quadro M2000M is kind of crazy value at the moment because it's basically a 750 Ti with 4 gigs of RAM, but it's for mobile. It's for like MXM socket. While Teslas are much different because they don't require all those quirks, so they're even cheaper. But then you have all the pitfalls. Older cards, I don't like Kepler. Kepler is thinky. Is like aged very badly. It's very bad with DirectX 12. It's even bad with DirectX 11. Really, it's bad efficiency. You can modify the BIOS on Kepler, so you get much better efficiency after the BIOS mode, but you're still far away from Maxwell. Um, Kepler cards are better for some stuff because they have more floating point, double precision performance. But that's another story. If you know you need that, you probably know already about this. So I would not go with the K versions, except for maybe the K20 because the K20 is very cheap. It doesn't perform much worse than the K40, and it costs much lower. The cost is much lower, and I'm quite sure that it has more headroom in the performance because being like a lower tier SKU, it probably has more headroom on the memory, especially. The K80, you have to forget about that because it's a dual GPU. Dual GPUs are terrible in game because they're not supported by the driver anyhow. So you can even get worse performance. You get like massive heat from the dual GPU setup without any gain. So don't do that.
I
Don't go for the
think
K4, K8.
I think important thing here is to look at the price, because for example, if we go to
Yeah, but yeah.
eBay, and damn it, how do I spell it? eBay.com, and if we search here for Tesla M40, what do we see here? That people are asking more than 300, almost 600 euros. Like, seriously, for this money, this is a complete nonsense. But if you have
Oh,
got.
it's kind of weird because I was searching for the same thing when I first saw the video, and I didn't find that. But then if you search on Google, you can actually get to some good price for those cards. It seems like the search on eBay is also broken, just as well as like the AliExpress search. So I was able to get them from eBay at 200 euros.
Yeah,
So that's not
that
terrible.
definitely could be the case, because eBay is trying to sell as much as possible, and to get as much money as possible, and they don't really bother about the buyer. They only bother about their income, and for
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
they need to get sold the expensive items.
I was
So
able to get the K20X for 60 euros, which is insane. They're not here yet. I think they should come tomorrow. I'm very like eager to test that. They also look very good. I mean, the cooler looks amazing on the K20X. And for 60 euros, up for that. I will gonna try that and report how it does, especially after BIOS modding. the K40 is much higher price than the K20X, and that's not worth it to me at all, because the K40 is was running at around 150 euros, 150, while the M40 for 200 euros, I think it's definitely worth it for my use case, at least, because I also have so many like professional clients that they need that VRAM capacity. So that's why I
Okay,
don't recommend other cards at the moment. Maybe the K20X. Just that if you can find it for 60 euros, that's interesting to try.
I
It should
think
be around the 1050 Ti performance, a little bit better, but with 3 times the power consumption, even after the BIOS modding. Like even without BIOS modding, it's gonna be 5 times power consumption. With the BIOS modding, you might be able to get like maybe a little bit more than double, 3 times the power consumption, and more
okay,
buffer,
Gabriele.
more buffer.
I think it's time to wrap up. We have basically covered everything, this custom and extra engineering samples and extra Quadros and Teslas. So for anyone who is interested to get more information, you can follow the links in the video description, which will show up soon after the live stream. You can also go to Pizza Undervolt website where Gabriele writes some stuff about undervolting and modifying BIOS for Tesla's Quadros and just regular GTX graphics cards.
So if
Phenomenal.
anyone wants to hear some more rambling, some questions that I can answer some questions. Uh, so yeah, you can go with a wrap, and then I will do some answering.
Yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up here, but if you still have some questions, shoot them in the chat and we will try to answer it there. So thanks everyone for joining for today. I hope it was useful. I hope you will find your Tesla for a good price and you will be able to mod it and have some fun with it. I have not yet decided what I'm gonna do with mine, but I have ideas to install it into my TV gaming machine, because right now I have there my Ryzen 5, but I need it for benchmarking, so I need some sort of a replacement. Thanks everyone. Thanks Gabriele for joining, and bye-bye.
Okay, so you're gonna leave the stream out so we can answer the questions.
I am going to leave the stream out for a little while,
Okay.
but I'm gonna mute ourselves and hide the video accounts.
Okay. So basically, there's a long story about that. So the Kepler architecture had actually different SKUs for different usage. You had the gaming SKUs, which had like lowered double precision performance, and then you have the 780 Ti and the Teslas and everything else that is higher tier, like Quadros, that have like very good double precision performance. So what you get with the K20X is same performance as a 780, not 780 Ti. I think you get the same amount of CUDA cores, but much higher double precision. So it's better than a 780, I think. That's 680, sorry. So I think it's maybe it's a bit better than the 1050 Ti, but not much better. Not much better, especially in new games. It's not gonna perform much better than a 1050 Ti. Or with old games for sure. So yeah, it's different. It's harder to say. While talking about machine learning, those cards are very good at machine learning. The M40 is a very good machine learning card because it has very good single precision performance. At the same time, it's terrible for like simulations because simulation require double precision, and the GM200 core is not made for double precision. Like it's a purely like single precision gaming texturing GPU. So it's even worse than the Kepler cards at like simulation at double precision. So you get different user cases. That's also why the K80 card is so expensive, because the K80 is a beast. Not really a beast because for today's standard it's bad, but it's a very good, very cost-effective double precision card. So that's why you have this kind of crazy prices all over the place, and that's why you shouldn't get a K40 or K80 for gaming. That's the point. Uh, I hope it makes some sense. It's kind of technical. I did some explanations in my article on my website, where you can find a little bit of rambling about like the Maxwell GPU architecture compared to Kepler and even Fermi. Uh, yeah, it's a good price, but you have to take into account that is even after you be BIOS modding, it's going to be 3 times as power hungry. I'm quite sure that the K20X will have slightly better, like around 130 watts consumption, I think, after 100 volts. And also worse DirectX 12 probably, while much better DirectX 10 and DirectX 11 performance. Also slightly higher RAM. I think they're still there. The K20X are still there for 60 euros. They are there now. They're there. And they probably dry up after this video. I have some coming now. There are also some other cards around. The other M4, I think M4, which is a 750 Ti, but I can't find them anywhere. So, I mean, those cards were like much lower running production than regular cards. So they're harder to find. They're harder to find in the second market because probably they get like recycled some other ways. Maybe some of them are also doing some work, still doing some work in some servers. I mean, I wonder if someone is doing actually BIOS modding on those cards in servers, because that would be awesome. Like, I'm not saying like the extreme BIOS modding that I do, because this is like maybe it could crash once in a month. But if you just get lower from 1.1 volts to 1 volt, 100% stable all of those M40. Like M40, I never had any. I mean, out of the I think 7 cards that I already did like perfect tuning on, none of this card was running at lower, like higher than 0.96 volts for the stock frequency. So that's it. Like no card required 1 volt to run, and that makes them very efficient. Like as I said, like Polaris level efficiency. Even in this DirectX 12, like much actually better than Polaris in DirectX 11, and matching Polaris, or even slightly better than Polaris in DirectX 12 games, because this card is using 150 watts to do 1,600, no, 16,000 fire strike, while a 580 does 14,000 at the same wattage. So it's definitely a little bit better than a Polaris card. Even I'm talking about like undervolted Polaris, because I never talk about not undervolted results. So that's it. My website is pizzaundervolt.com. That's it. You get like landing pages for Italian. The website is not perfect. I'm working on it. Most articles are English. Yeah, thanks for the link. I didn't know you cannot write the link in the YouTube comments, but you can on the chat.
I can do that if I am an owner of the YouTube, or if I'm owner of the channel, I can do that. Okay, thanks Gabriele for answering the questions, and
I think there's no more answers, more questions there.
No, not for today.
Yeah, there's a more question about VM. We don't know about VMs. Like it's being covered by Craft Computing, I think. Thanks a lot to everyone. Goodbye.
Ciao, ciao.